The courtroom was deathly still when the judge's gavel slammed down, sealing a verdict that would destroy my life. Officer Matthew Miller is guilty. 17 years of service in the police force, decorated with numerous commendations. None of it mattered. I sat there in handcuffs, staring at the floor, still proclaiming my innocence. But the jury found the evidence against me to be airtight. My career was over. Oddly enough, it wasn't the weight of the prison sentence that crushed me most. It was the thought of being separated from my loyal K9 partner. Jack, my German shepherd, sat near the back of the courtroom, his keen eyes fixed on me. He was more than just a partner. He'd been my constant companion through situations most people couldn't imagine. Knowing I might never see him again was unbearable. When the judge stood to leave, my voice broke the tense silence. "Your Honor," I said, my throat tight with emotion. "Before they take me away, I have one final request. Please, let me say goodbye to Jack." A murmuring ripple spread through the courtroom. The judge paused, studying me for a long moment. Finally, he nodded, his voice firm but laced with sympathy. "You have 3 minutes." The moment Jack was released, he sprinted toward me, his claws clicking against the polished floor. I knelt, pulling him into a tight hug. Tears blurred my vision. "I'm so sorry, buddy," I whispered into his fur, hot tears rolling down my cheeks. "I've failed you. I won't be there anymore." Jack whimpered, nuzzling against my chest. Then, quite suddenly, his body went rigid and his nose began sniffing frantically at my jacket. He tugged at the fabric, barking sharply. Once, twice, so loud that it shattered the hushed solemnity of the courtroom. "What's the dog doing?" the judge demanded, frowning. Jack pulled harder, his barking echoing off the walls. One of the officers approached cautiously and felt around my jacket. The tension in the room thickened. Then, with a metallic clink, a small device fell to the floor. It was a recorder. The prosecutor's face turned pale as he rushed forward, his voice shaking. "This proves nothing," he snapped, trying to regain control. But Jack barked again, standing his ground. The truth was obvious. Whatever was on that device mattered. My heart pounded as I stared at the tiny recorder. For the first time in weeks, a spark of hope ignited in me. Could this be the evidence I'd been waiting for? The judge ordered the officer to pick up the recorder, his tone calm but resolute. The officer fumbled with the small machine, pressing play. A crackling filled the air, followed by muffled voices. Everyone in the courtroom leaned in. Then the words exploded like a bomb. "Just plant the evidence," a gruff voice said. "No one will suspect Matthew with his spotless record. Makes him the perfect scapegoat. Do it today." A collective gasp rippled across the room. My heart froze and then thundered in my chest. The voice belonged to a man I had trusted, my former supervisor, Captain Gray Johnson. "That's enough," the prosecutor exclaimed, lunging for the device. But the judge slammed his gavel down. "Sit down," he ordered, his voice so commanding that the prosecutor stopped mid-stride. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. The recording revealed everything. The evidence had been planted. I had been framed. Jack remained by my side, a low growl in his throat, an echo of my silent fury. The judge leaned back in his chair, face grim. "This hearing is not over," he declared. "Bailiffs, escort the defendant back into custody. Secure that device as new evidence. We will reopen this case." For the first time in weeks, I felt hope flicker in my chest. As they led me away, I locked eyes with Jack, his intelligent gaze filled with unwavering loyalty. I silently promised him, and myself, that I would not let this injustice stand. Back in my cold cell, I sat on the hard bench, staring at the empty concrete wall. My mind raced with the realization that Jack's sharp instincts had uncovered what nobody else could, a planted piece of evidence that could be my salvation. But mixed with my relief was a profound sense of betrayal. Captain Gray Johnson, a man I had respected for years, was at the heart of it all. Meanwhile, in the judge's chambers, tension ran high. The judge replayed the incriminating tape on a secured device, hearing Johnson's commanding tone and another unidentified voice discussing a calculated cover-up. The judge's eyes narrowed. Pressing a button on the intercom, he ordered, "Have Captain Johnson report to my office immediately." Outside the courtroom, Johnson had been waiting, ensuring my sentencing went according to his plan. When a fellow officer approached him with the judge's abrupt summons, a flicker of unease crossed Johnson's face. Moments later, he stood before the judge. Johnson nodded politely, but his shoulders were tense. "You asked for me, Your Honor?" he said, voice calm despite the nervous dart of his gaze toward the recorder on the desk. "I did," the judge replied, leaning forward. He tapped the small device with one finger. "Care to explain this?" Johnson's usually confident demeanor faltered for just a second. He quickly recovered, feigning confusion. "I'm not sure what you mean, sir," he said evenly. The judge pressed play again. Johnson's face paled, but he forced a grim smile. "Your Honor, this is ridiculous," he insisted. "That could be anyone on the tape. You can't seriously think I don't think," the judge interrupted coldly. "I act on evidence, and this," he gestured at the recorder, "is evidence of a crime. Multiple crimes." Before Johnson could respond, two bailiffs entered, alarm in his eyes as they approached him. "What do you think you're doing?" Johnson demanded, voice rising. "You have no right." "You're being detained for questioning," the judge said firmly. "Until we sort this out, you are a suspect in obstructing justice and falsifying evidence." As the bailiffs led a protesting Johnson away, the judge leaned back in his chair and exhaled. The web of corruption was unraveling fast. And my story, Officer Miller's story, was far from over. News of Captain Johnson's arrest sent shockwaves through the entire police department. Rumors about deeper corruption spread like wildfire. Meanwhile, I sat in my cell, unaware of the growing storm outside. My thoughts remained on Jack, the K-9 partner who had discovered that crucial device. Elsewhere, Jack had been taken to the station's K-9 unit for a checkup. One of my closest colleagues, Officer Maya Mitchell, volunteered to care for him until my case was resolved. Jack seemed restless, pacing in his kennel and letting out sharp barks that echoed through the otherwise quiet building. "He knows something's wrong," Maya muttered, crouching outside the kennel. "Don't worry, buddy. We'll figure this out." When she stood, Jack pressed his nose against the cage, sniffing at her jacket, his tail stiff. Maya's stomach churned. Was this behavior tied to my case, or was she imagining things? She hesitated, then opened the kennel door. "All right, boy," she said, clipping on his leash. "Show me what's on your mind." Jack led her straight to my locker in the station's storage room, frantically sniffing and scratching at the bottom drawer. Maya's heart pounded as she unlocked and opened it. Beneath some folded uniforms lay a small, unmarked envelope. Inside were grainy photographs, but damning nonetheless. They showed Captain Johnson meeting with a known criminal. Tucked behind the photos was a document outlining illegal dealings with Johnson at the center, including a bribery scheme directly tied to the case that landed me in handcuffs. Maya stared at the evidence, her chest tightening. "Jack," she whispered, voice trembling, "you just found proof." Realizing the gravity of the discovery, Maya promptly contacted the judge. The photos and documents, combined with the audio recording Jack had unearthed, painted a grim picture of Johnson's guilt. Still, Maya suspected Johnson wasn't acting alone. Jack sat beside her, his solid presence giving her the courage she needed. "He really is the best partner anyone could ask for," she said quietly, scratching Jack behind the ears. Back in the judge's office, the mood was tense as he examined the newly discovered documents and photos. He shook his head. "This is bigger than I realized," he admitted. "If these documents are legitimate, then Miller is not only innocent, he's the victim of a cover-up at the highest level." He immediately ordered an emergency hearing. The news that my case was reopened rocked the police station. Suspicion mounted as everyone wondered who else might be involved. At long last, I was pulled from my cell for questioning. My pulse raced as I stepped into the secure interview room and saw Maya and the judge waiting. There on the table lay the evidence, and next to Maya sat Jack, looking proud as ever. "This has just come to light," the judge explained, sliding the documents toward me. "It proves Johnson's corruption, and most importantly, that the evidence against you was fabricated." My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages. Photos, records, even detailed notes on how Johnson had orchestrated my arrest. It was all there in black and white. My voice wavered. "Does this mean—" The judge nodded gravely. "Yes, you're exonerated. But this isn't over yet. There are others involved, and we'll need your help to expose them." I sank to my knees and pulled Jack into another hug. "You saved me," I murmured, my throat tight with gratitude. "You saved me again." Jack wagged his tail, the relief in the room palpable. But I knew this was only the beginning. Whoever orchestrated my downfall was deeper than Johnson alone. Layers of deceit remained to be uncovered. I vowed not to rest until every last truth came to light. The day I walked out of the courthouse as a free man should have been triumphant. Yet the weight of what lay ahead felt heavier than any chain I'd just shed. Reporters clamored on the courthouse steps, shouting questions about the reopened investigation and the corruption scandals smoldering within the police department. I ignored them all, focusing solely on Jack, who trotted faithfully at my side, a symbol of hope amid the chaos. Inside, the judge had assembled a task force to investigate the growing web of corruption. Maya became an integral part of the team, taking command of the search. The photos, financial records, and recordings Jack and I had helped uncover hinted at extensive bribery and evidence tampering involving multiple officers and powerful figures outside the department. Captain Johnson was just the tip of the iceberg, Maya told me as we stood on the courthouse steps. "We need your help. Nobody knows the department like you do." I hesitated, jaw clenched. I had devoted my entire career to the badge, trusting the system's integrity. That faith was now broken. But when I looked at Jack, his calm, resolute eyes reminding me why I joined the force in the first place, I found my answer. "I'm in," I said quietly. "But I'm not doing this for the department. I'm doing this for the truth, and for the good cops still out there fighting the right fight." The deeper we dug, the more twisted the network of corruption appeared. Old case files, falsified bank statements, intercepts from the department's communication channels. They all traced back to an orchestrated scheme far bigger than Captain Johnson. One night, sifting through boxes of archived case files, Maya's face went pale. "We've identified at least 6 other officers involved," she said, voice tight with worry. "Some of them high-ranking. It's getting worse, Matthew. We're seeing evidence connecting them to organized crime." Anger flared in me. "They're playing both sides," I said bitterly. "And they tried to destroy my life to cover their tracks. We can't handle this alone," I muttered. "We might need federal help." "Not yet," Maya insisted. "We're still missing key pieces. If we go to the FBI now and word gets out, the entire operation could scatter. We need a smoking gun that locks these people in place." Suddenly, Jack sprang to his feet from where he'd been resting. He trotted over to a stack of old files, sniffing at a specific box. Inside, we found documents from a major drug bust 5 years earlier, championed as a clean sweep. But nothing made sense. Names were redacted, whole sections blacked out. Maya pointed to a handwritten note near the bottom of one report. That's Johnson's signature, she said. This bust wasn't a clean sweep. It was a smokescreen to eliminate competition while protecting criminals who were paying the department. My fists clenched. They took out honest cops and protected criminals for personal gain. That was when my phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. "You're digging too deep. Stop now or you'll regret it." I showed Maya and she swallowed hard. "They're scared," she said. "That means we're close." I looked down at Jack, sitting calmly, as if ready for whatever came next. "Let them come," I said. "I'm not stopping." The threat didn't remain mere words. Late one night, Maya and I stayed behind in a meeting room, determined to piece together the final clues. We suspected an elusive figure, initials AR, was orchestrating the entire conspiracy. If we could expose them, the whole operation would crumble. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. Maya tensed, hand instinctively reaching for her sidearm. "That's not a normal power outage," she warned. Glass shattered near the hallway. Footsteps approached, heavy and deliberate. Adrenaline roared in my veins. I signaled to Maya to take cover while Jack went on high alert, growling low. Moments later, the door was kicked open and chaos erupted. One intruder burst into the room, gun raised, but before they could fire, Jack lunged with lightning speed, clamping onto the assailant's arm. The intruder shrieked, dropping their weapon. I kicked the gun away, pivoting to face a second figure storming through the doorway. "Don't move," I yelled, weapon trained. The second intruder froze, hands raised, posture coiled like a spring. Behind me, Maya was calling for backup, her voice steady but urgent. From the corridor came more heavy footsteps, reinforcements. The second intruder made a desperate move, hurling a tear gas canister into the room. Smoke billowed thick and acrid, stinging our eyes and throats. "Matthew," Maya choked out, snatching up the key files. "We have to move." I whistled sharply for Jack, who immediately released the pinned man and dashed back to my side. We ducked low and sprinted to the rear exit as bullets whizzed past, shattering windows and furniture. We stumbled into the dark alley behind the building, hearts pounding. Maya clutched the files to her chest, her breath ragged. "We can't go back to the station," she gasped. "They'll be waiting for us." I nodded grimly. Whoever AR was, they played for keeps. A glance at Jack, panting but determined, filled me with fresh resolve. "Then we finish this on our terms," I said. "No more running." We fled to a remote safe house, an old cabin deep in the woods. It was eerily quiet. Inside, we spread out every piece of evidence we'd salvaged. Ties between dirty cops, local politicians, and known criminals were meticulously listed, all funneling back to an unknown AR. Maya ran a shaky finger over the papers. "This is it," she breathed. "If we can get this to the press or federal investigators, they can't hide anymore. The whole network will collapse." Before I could respond, Jack sprang to his feet. He growled at the window, ears pricked forward. My gut clenched. They'd found us again. Gunfire exploded, bullets splintering the cabin's windows. Shards of glass flew everywhere. I yanked Maya down behind the table. Jack snarled, poised for another fight. Footsteps thundered on the porch. "We can't let them take these files," Maya said fiercely. She grabbed them and stuffed the crucial documents into a bag. "Jack and I'll hold them off," I told her. "Go, get the evidence out of here." Maya hesitated, eyes flicking between me and the door. Then she clutched the bag to her chest and darted out the back, disappearing into the night. Jack and I held our ground. The intruders came in waves. We managed to drive them back, but not without a vicious firefight. Finally, I heard distant sirens. Reinforcements at last. Days later, the story broke nationally. Maya had gotten our files to a trusted journalist, whose exposé brought the entire conspiracy crashing down. Arrests were made at every level. Dirty cops, high-ranking officials, and ultimately, AR himself, a powerful local politician who had used the police department as his personal enforcement squad. I was hailed as a hero, though I did my best to sidestep the spotlight. Standing on the porch of my home, finally truly free, I watched Jack bound across the yard. He had saved my life countless times, and our bond was now unbreakable. "We did it, buddy," I said quietly, kneeling down to scratch behind his ears. "It's over." Jack wagged his tail, leaning into my hand. In the glow of the setting sun, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in weeks, maybe even years. It wasn't just the end of a battle. It was the start of something new. I had fought for justice, not just for myself, but for all the people silenced by corruption. And as Jack chased after a tennis ball in the yard, I knew that together, we'd earned this moment of calm. If this story touched your heart, consider supporting our channel. Click the sticker icon below the video. Choose your favorite sticker pack. Select the quantity and confirm. Your support helps us create more emotional stories, all just like this one. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey.